Helena Ross, a reclusive author, is dying. She has 3 months to write her final work, a confession, but she can't do it alone. She turns to her fiercest rival, the one person she despises most, to help her tell the truth. But what is the truth? In a house stripped bare, where every corner whispers secrets, what is memory and what is a lie? What really happened on that fateful day? And why is the final confession more dangerous than death itself? To hear this shocking confession in its entirety, find the Ghostwriter on the Best Twists podcast, where I, Clyde, will tell you every last detail.
Prologue. A gentle pull on my hand. I resist, turning away, and smile when I feel the tiny fingers pushing aside my bangs, the soft weight of a body against mine. Mommy. A huff of breath against my cheek. Mommy. Mommy's asleep, Simon whispers. If we don't wake her up, we can eat all of the delicious chocolate chip pancakes ourselves. I growl and clamp a hand over his, which is sneaking under the edge of my sleep shirt. I open my eyes and look up into his face, those handsome features dusted by flour and a smear of chocolate. Easy, I warn him, pulling on his wrist and dragging him onto the mattress, my movements quick as I wiggle out of the covers and atop his waist. You know the monster is grouchy when she is awoken. Let me! Bethany scrambles before me, straddling his chest and gripping the front of his shirt, looking back at me with a smile. I crow. My monster keeper and I have got you captured, Mr. Pancake Man. I shift atop him, and he gives me a look, the sort of look that years ago led to naked events that create babies. I smile at him and wrap my arms around my child. What should we make Mr. Pancake Man do, Princess Bethany? He should feed the monster, she announces, and raises both hands in the air to exclamation, point the phrase. And do the dishes. I raise my own hands in the air and Simon groans in protest. Bucking up his hips, he deposits us both onto the mattress, giving Bethany a quick tickle and me a deep kiss. Come, monster, he commands. Come and let me fill that big belly. I come, I eat, and afterward, while Bethany draws and I settle into the recliner to write, he does the dishes. A perfect morning, a perfect husband, a perfect daughter, a perfect lie. 1. I'm dying. It's a grim start to any story, but I think the news should be delivered in the same manner as a ripped Band-Aid, short and blunt. A stab that burns for a moment, then is gone, the moment over. My doctor tiptoed around the news, showing me test results and citing blood cell counts, CEA numbers, and an MRI that showed a tumor the size of a small lemon. He drew out what could have been accomplished in 2 short sentences. You're terminal. You have 3 months left. I should be sad. I should be emotional. My fingers shaking as they press cell phone buttons and make depressingly bleak phone calls to all my friends and family. Only, I don't have friends. And my family. I have no family. I have no family. I have only this countdown. A dark, ominous chant of days, sunrises and sunsets before my body gives up. And my mind shuts down. It's not really a terrible diagnosis. Not for me. I've been waiting 4 years for something like this to happen. A guillotine to fall. An escape door to appear. I'd be almost cheerful about it if it weren't for the book. The story. The truth, which I've avoided for the last 4 years. I step into my office and flip on the light. Moving forward, I reach out, my hand trailing over the corkboard wall, hovering over the key. Tacked up photos, the pages of abandoned ideas, jotted notes of 100 sleepless nights, sparks of inspiration, some that led nowhere, some that now sit on bookshelves all over the world. My husband made me this board. His hands held the wood frame in place, cut the cork, and nailed the pieces into place. He kept me out of the office all day to do it, my insistence at entering thwarted by the lock, my knocks on the door ignored. I remember sitting back in this same chair, my hands on my belly. And seeing the final product, I had stared up at the blank board and thought of all the stories I would build on it. The words already itching for their place. It had become everything I thought it would. I stop at the page I've read countless times. It's paper worn more than the others. The edges not obscured with clippings or neighboring photos. It's the synopsis for a novel. Right now, it's just one paragraph in length. The type of copy that might one day be embossed on the back cover of the book. I've written 15 novels, but this one terrifies me. I fear that I won't have the right words, the right arc, that I will aim too high, hit too hard, and still not properly affect the reader. I fear that I'll tell everything, and still no one will understand. It's a book I had planned to write decades from now. Once my skills had grown, my writing sharpened, talents perfected. It is a book I plan to spend years on, everything else pushed aside. My world closing in on the one thing that mattered, nothing else moving until it was finished, until it was perfect. Now I don't have decades, I don't have years. I don't have the level of skill, I don't have anything. It doesn't matter. I pull at the tack that holds it in place and set the page carefully on the center of my clean desk. 3 months. The deadline is the tightest I've ever faced. There will be no frantic calls to my agent, no negotiation for more time. 3 months to write a story that deserves years. Is it even possible? 2. When I meet him, the night is singed with the smell of funnel cakes and cigarette smoke. He smiles and something inside of me shifts, a crack in between the vertebrae, my heart beating a little bit harder than it ever has. Boys like him don't go for girls like me. They don't follow me with their eyes or listen when I speak. They don't lean closer or want more. He is different than all the others. He doesn't laugh. He doesn't step away. Our eyes meet, his mouth curves, and my world changes. Writing the first chapter burns. Maybe it's the new drugs, maybe it's the memories, but I feel hot with the effort. My shirt damp against the small of my back, my chest tight and achy by the time I finish the story of our meeting and our first date. It was a night where he won my mother over with one easy smile, and won me over with tacos and Mexican beer, his fingers looping through mine as we walked out to the car. He had kissed me against that car, my mouth hesitant, his strong and sure, my nerves dissolving in the first confident dive of his tongue. I had been such a young 20-year-old, one that had never been on a date, never been pursued, never cared about boys and romance outside of the pages of my novels. But everything had been different after that night. Simon swept into my life and turned it into something fiery and wild. My days beginning with an excited fervor, my nights ending with thoughts of love and of a future, one of travel and passion, of his eyes and his touch, of being desired for something other than my words. It had been love, from the very beginning. Wild, crazy, senseless. Love. I saved my work and closed the laptop, feeling nauseous. At precisely 2:24 on Wednesday afternoon, I stopped typing. Moving the laptop aside, I clear off the top of my desk, moving my phone into the center of the space. A fresh notepad pulled from the drawer, a pen uncapped and placed on its white-lined surface. In the next 2 minutes, I settle back against the chair and extend my arms over my head, closing my eyes and stretching my chest. At precisely 2:30, the phone rings. I sit up, grabbing the phone and lifting it to my ear. "Hey, Kate." "Good afternoon, Helena." There is a hitch in her voice, as if she's run to the phone, as if she hasn't had all week to prepare for this call and set aside this time. Irritation blooms in my chest, a common occurrence on these calls. I have 4 things to discuss. It took years for me to properly train Kate, to curb the agent's tendencies for mindless chit-chat and pleasantries. In the beginning, she was more resistant to my expectations. But the first advance, the first bestseller, the first commission, that made her more pliable. It's amazing what money will do to a person, the level of control it can establish. It's made Kate my monkey. It made Simon my pet. The sort who doesn't clean up his messes, the sort who marks his territory, the sort who bares his teeth and will attack your child if you don't keep him on a tight enough leash. Kate brings up a foreign offer first, my pen scratching out the terms under a neat heading with today's date. I accept the terms, and we move on to the second item, a third reprinting of Hope's Fairy. Wahoo, I sigh, and manage to make it through the third and fourth topic. She falls silent, and I consider my next words, choosing ones designed to cause as little a reaction as possible. I'll need you to close any open action items. I'm retiring. Retiring, I decided over breakfast, would be the best way to put it. It's sort of the same thing as death, as far as Kate is concerned. Both mean that my book production will stop. Both mean that I won't be able to meet any outstanding deadlines. There is a long silence, the sort that stretches over canyons, the kind that causes someone to pull the phone away from their ear and check the connection. When she finally responds, it is decidedly unimaginative, and I sigh at her predictability. Kate. Retiring, Kate says dumbly. She spent the greater part of the last 10 seconds trying to find a better response, one that Helena would appreciate, but the thought is so absurd that she can only repeat it. There is no way Helena Ross is retiring, not when Marka Vantley is churning out a fresh bestseller every 4 months. Helena will write until her fingers fall off purely out of competitive spite for her rival. Besides, who retires at 32? Yes, Helena snaps. It's when people stop working. I'm familiar with the term. She pushes against the desk, her office chair spinning, the room a soothing blur of pale pinks and cream. Why? She closes her eyes when she asks the question, knowing, even as she utters the word, that it isn't allowed. Rule #4 on Helena's rules for Kate is to not ask personal questions. A rule she's broken before, the result's always disastrous. She steels herself for the click of the receiver, the sharp cut of Helena's voice, the dreaded ding of an incoming email, one full of stern admonishments about their agent-client relationship and its boundaries. Instead, Helena only sighs, the lack of reaction as odd as her retirement announcement. I need you to reach out to the publisher about Broken and let them know I won't be delivering it. Kate's eyes snap open, her teeth baring in the inhuman act of not repeating the woman's words. She sits upright, pulling herself closer to the desk, using the moment to flip the calendar open, her fingers skimming over the dates until she gets to the neatly written words. Broken due. A little over a month from now. Last week, when they spoke, Helena had been 80% done and confident about her delivery. In their 13 years together, Kate could count the number of times that Helena had missed a deadline on one hand. Her requested extensions had never been for more than a week or two, her personal rules as strict as the ones she had for everyone else. But now, she isn't asking for an extension. She's telling Kate that she wants to walk away from a publishing commitment, a book that has already been announced, pre-marketing in place, half of her 7-figure advance already in the bank, Kate's commission way past spent. Non-delivery is a rare event in the publishing industry. For Helena Ross, it's inconceivable. She stands, every muscle tightening in preparation for battle. Helena, she says carefully. What's happened? Stop being dramatic, Kate. Helena's voice is brisk, one that an elder would use with a child, despite Kate's 10-year jump on her. Call the publisher, wrap up my other obligations. If you can handle that task, I'll find another agent who will. There is something else. Kate can feel it coming, something even bigger than the broken news. A tsunami moving calmly toward the shore. Preparation useless. her feet rooted in place, disaster imminent. She swallows, leaning against the edge of the desk for support, her fingers tugging at the double strand of pearls at her neck, fighting the urge to reach higher and pick at her lips. I can do it. Maybe she's wrong. Maybe there isn't something else. Between retirement of her biggest client and cancellation of a contract, maybe the bloodletting is over. There's something else. 3 words Kate doesn't want to hear. She drops her head and exhales. Whatever it is, she can handle it. She hasn't survived 13 years with Helena without becoming strong. The woman is a freaking wrecking ball of high-maintenance unpredictability. I'm going to write a new book. I'd like Trisha Pridgeon to edit it. Of course she does. Trisha Pridgeon is the hottest editor in publishing. When she wants a book, she gets it. And everything she publishes turns to editorial gold. #1 bestseller, multi-print runs, foreign explosions. But Trisha Pridgeon won't take a new Helena Ross. She doesn't do romance novels. Hell, she barely does fiction. Her last novel was a collection of O.J. Simpson interviews, perfectly packaged and still dominating the bestseller lists. Helena should know this. Helena has to know this. You want to walk from broken and retire and write a new book to sell to Trisha Pridgeon? It is a bad math problem. The variables not adding up. Yes. Kate closes the calendar and tries to think, to work through the steps in this impossible equation. Do you have an outline? No outline. A relief. Something to buy her a few weeks of time. How long will it take you to finish one? I'm not submitting an outline or a synopsis. She sighs. If Helena were anyone else, she'd think she was bluffing, that this entire conversation is a joke. A camera hidden in her bookshelf, her coworkers giggling in their offices. But Helena doesn't. Outsider novels have a sense of humor. She doesn't believe in anything that wastes time. There is no way she would spend. Kate glances at the clock. 24 minutes on something that isn't vitally important. I can't pitch without an outline, especially without a synopsis. You know that? I could get away with that with Jackie, but not with Trisha Pridgeon, who, by the way, doesn't take romance submissions. I know what Trisha Pridgeon is interested in, Kate. The words are a whip, one that paints the words "not worthy" in red blood across her face. Not worthy to handle the great Helena Ross submissions. Not worthy to be the agent of romance's hottest star. Not worthy to ask personal questions, or to call on any day, except for Wednesdays at 2:30 p.m., or to issue opinions about Helena's novels. Not worthy to do anything except keep her mouth shut and obey. Then, please explain to me how you'd like me to sell this book without knowing a thing about it. Kate uses her nicest voice, the one she reserves for when Helena is at her most difficult. A voice that, had she used it on her ex-husband, he might have stayed around a little longer. I don't want you to sell it now. I want you to sell it in a few months. Once I retire. There is something funny about the way she says retire, as if she hasn't grown used to the word quite yet. A few months, once I retire. A few months is too soon, too sudden. The tsunami grows closer, and the foreboding feeling mounts. How much will be done by then? How much will I have to use? All of it. She says the words with quiet finality, as if she's tired of talking, her mind distracted by something else. I've got to go. Helena can't hang up. Not now. Not when she just dumped a mountain of work on Kate. Wait, Kate says wildly, searching through all of the questions she still needs to ask. Talk to you next Wednesday? A huge waste of a question. Their Wednesday phone date's so regular, she could set her ovulation schedule to it. Wednesday? Helena says faintly. Yeah, maybe. There is the click of the receiver, and Kate's worry blooms into full-fledged panic. 3. My rules for visitors are simple. Printed clearly in size 16 font, laminated and nailed to the center of the door, in an impossible-to-miss spot. The first rule, as always, is the most important. 1. Do not ring the doorbell. 2. Do not park in the driveway. 3. If you are a solicitor, leave. 4. If you are a religious or political advocate, quietly place your collateral materials underneath the mat. 5. If you are here on a social call, go away. 6. If you are here for business or legal purposes, please contact my agent or attorney. 7. Package deliveries. You have my authorization to leave packages without a signature. I check the peephole, then crack open my front door and glare at the doorbell ringer. A young woman foolish enough to ignore my sign. She's probably the nanny of those kids, the ones who have shrieked in the street for almost 2 hours now. I had incorrectly assumed 3 years ago, when I bought every other cul-de-sac lot, that I would be guaranteeing myself exclusive use of the giant round space. Apparently, that isn't the case. My complaints to the Homeowners Association met with stubborn denials. Yes? Helena Parks. I almost flinch at the use of my married name, one so rarely used. My name is Charlotte Blanton. I'd like to ask you a few questions. The police officer, his eyes grim, the smell of October in the air. I have just a few questions. The mortician, his thin fingers, the tap of them against a display of coffins. I stay hidden behind the door and watch the movement of her throat as she swallows, her hands flexing around a stack of papers. Are you Helena Parks? She's less sure of herself, and I enjoy the unease. Maybe she's a fan, a reader who hunted past publishing records and marriage licenses. It's happened before. The last one required the police. This woman, her thin shoulders jutting through a cardigan, I can probably handle. I'm not interested in visitors. My words are scratchy, and I clear my throat. It will only take a moment. No. I start to shut the door and she places her palm on it. I pause, and I really need to amend the rules and add visitors will not touch the door. Then again, this girl obviously has no regard for authority. Her eyes skipping right past my laminated list in her ring of the bell. Please, she says, it's about your husband. My husband. I hate those words falling from another person's lips. They are so bland, so weak for everything that he was. My fingers tighten on the knob. I made my statements to the police, answered hundreds of their questions. I had passed that test. To go through it again now, with this new woman, isn't something I am interested in. Especially not today, the giggle of children still scraping on my nerves. I say nothing, avoiding her eyes as I close the door and flip the deadbolt, the click satisfying as it locks her outside. I turn away from the door, hurrying toward the stairs, intent on getting away, to my office where I can shut the door, turn up my music and drown out the sound of her intrusion. She knocks, a rap that stabs at my psyche, my breath coming hard as I attempt to jog up the stairs, my muscles resisting, my body's weakness showing. Over 4 years since that day. What loose thread could this woman have found? 4. My oncologist has prescribed me 14 different medications, a mountain of orange pill bottles that cover every symptom my body could think of producing. Not one of them treats the pain in the ass which I currently battle. Marka Vantley, international best-selling author. She sucks, and in more than just the biblical sense. I inhale deeply and stare at her latest email. Helena. I just had the displeasure of reading Drumbeat. It's interesting what passes for successful literature in this day and age. I'm so sorry about your publisher's weekly review, though I certainly understand their opinions on the novel. Congratulations on your release. Marka. The bitch. This email has taken longer to come than the others. 2 months passing since my pub date. Marka had probably been too distracted by gangbangs and shopping sprees to bother with something like reading. In her last interview, she'd been stretched out naked on a pile of her paperbacks, her blonde hair tumbling over their covers. For an author, she doesn't have a spare ounce of fat. No dark roots showing, her eyes lazy and seductive as they'd stared up into the camera. It had been disgusting, so disgusting that I'd called the New Yorker and canceled my subscription. Writers aren't supposed to be sex objects. We're supposed to be valued for our words, our stories, and the impact that we leave on a reader's heart. Then again, Marcus books don't quite have that effect. Their target focused more on arousal and less on emotional resonation. I rip off the head of a banana and chew, my fingers a bit slimy as I fire back a response. Ms. Vantley, I'm not going to take criticism from someone whose last book was titled The Fireman's Hose. Please return to your trashy smut and let the real authors work in peace. Helena Ross. Short and deadly. I send the email and smile, returning to my inbox, my mouse quick as I scroll past the other emails. A collection of uselessness. I unsubscribed to several solicitors, then chide myself for wasting my time. 3 months left, and I'm cleaning up my inbox now? Stupid. I take a final bite of the banana and toss the peel in the direction of the trash, watching as it settles into the white plastic bag. My headache, one that began this morning, is getting increasingly worse, a vice grip tightening on my temples. I let the email fester for a moment and stand, heading for the Vicodin upstairs in my desk, the banana enough food to keep it from hitting an empty stomach. I climb the stairs, and when I reach the top, the landing spins. I grip the banister for a moment and wait for everything to refocus. Maybe I should sit. Lightheadedness as of late has become common, as has vertigo and blurred vision, the combination a bitch to my productivity levels. Another wave of lightheadedness hits and my hand loosens, not listening to my brain. I try to regrip the banister, stumble hurriedly up the final steps, but everything becomes a kaleidoscope of gray and white and slick polished stairs. My knees buckle. 5. Kate. Kate opens the door to her Manhattan condo, pulling off her flats as she enters, the dark room filling her with a moment of fear before her hand hits the switch, and the space flickers to light. 2 years since her divorce, and she still hasn't gotten used to the eeriness of living alone. The feeling that someone is there, hiding and waiting. She opens a can of soup, dumping the thick mixture into a small pot and turning the burner on, her mind filled with thoughts of Helena. She put off calling the publishers, hoping that Helena will call her back, her sanity restored. Of course she hasn't. Helena isn't the type to waffle over a decision or change her mind. The minute she gave Kate the order to pull out of Broken, it was done. Game over. Dead book walking. It hasn't always been this hard. With Helena's first novel, she'd been almost pleasant to work with. Of course, she'd been younger then. A 19-year-old baby. One with big eyes and a solemn face. One who had driven from Connecticut for the sole purpose of terrorizing the Big Apple with her words. As a favor to a friend, Kate had met her at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. She'd watched the mousy brunette pick at a muffin as she described her novel. A second chance romance that sounded exactly like half of Kate's slush pile. Kate had grown distracted, eavesdropping on a fight brewing at the next table, when she realized that the girl had grown quiet. Kate had flipped over the top page of the manuscript, her eyes sneaking down to her watch. Then she'd read the first line, the first paragraph, the first chapter. She, like all of America eventually would, devoured the words. From that plain, pale creature, one with ears and eyes a bit too big, came magic. She had forced herself to stop on the 4th page, her gaze darting up to Helena's. "You wrote this?" Helena had nodded, then asked if she liked it. Yes. The answer had been too weak, and she had run her hand, almost reverently, across the page, trying to contain her excitement. I need to read the rest of it. Tonight. The girl had produced a CD-ROM from her messenger bag, pushing it across the table at Kate. "I've given this to 5 other agents." She'd said the words as if they were a gift, relieving the pressure off Kate. No need for her to pretend to like the material. But they'd had the opposite effect. The innocent information a threat. Each minute that passed a possible opportunity for her phone to ring. The opportunity snatched from Kate. "Okay." Kate had smiled weakly, her fingers lingering on the pages as she passed them back to the girl, the lost one she could feel in her chest. In contrast, the receipt of the CD had felt hollow, the case too light for the words which had already stamped themselves on her heart. Kate had known, even before she opened the file, that she wanted it. She read the manuscript at her kitchen counter, peering at the thigh screen over leftover Chinese and hot tea, her mouse constantly scrolling. The file resaved and sent to her boss by 10 p.m. At 10:15, she'd called Helena and left a voicemail. The voicemail she followed up with an email, one that promised a 10% commission rate, a 5% discount that would risk her job but was worth it. She'd also guaranteed that the novel would go to auction in the 6 figures, another lofty promise that she couldn't back up, a figure she had never managed before. But she'd never represented a book like it before. This book could make her. This book could fix everything. Their struggle to pay rent, her looming unemployment, the weak shelf her marriage balanced on. In their dreary apartment, sending off that ridiculous beg for business. She hadn't known how high maintenance Helena would turn out to be. She had grabbed a hold of the shiny novel and hadn't even considered the headaches that might accompany its creator. And the headaches have been plentiful. It isn't that Helena sets out to be high maintenance. She is just very particular about what she wants. Her quirks growing stronger over the last few years, and transitioning from requests to demands. The pleasant girl from that coffee shop has all but disappeared, withdrawing from Kate, the publishers, from any interaction with anyone. In her place, there has emerged a new Helena, one with which interactions are minefields and keeping her happy, a balancing act. On rare days, Kate regrets ever meeting the woman. But on most days, she just wonders about her. They say all geniuses are a little mad. Maybe Helena's madness just took longer to come out. Kate opens a drawer and grabs a long wooden spoon, leaning against the edge of the counter and stirring the soup. Tomorrow, she decides. Tomorrow she will call, or maybe email the publisher and inform them of Helena's decision. An email will suffice, right? Something short and professional. If only she had more information, an excuse of some sort. She can't tell them the truth. That Helena is abandoning Broken for a new novel, one she wants to send to one of their competitors. Talk about burning a bridge. Word of this will spread through the publishing community like lice at a summer camp. Every head infected with negative thoughts of Helena before the end of the week. She'll never be able to sell another one of her novels. Not that it really matters, since the woman is retiring. She coughs out a laugh at the thought and opens the refrigerator, pulling out a bottle of Moscato and setting it on the corner. Vodka would be more appropriate. Something to toast the end of her career with, but she threw out all of the vodka when Rod left. The vodka, the bourbon, the small bottles she'd found tucked in every corner of their apartment. Turns out her husband had been quite the alcoholic, a trait she hadn't discovered until Head left. Funny what you find out about people when they leave you, or when your mind stops making excuses for all of their clues. The counselor had called those clues his womanizing, his sloppy drinking, his lies, a call for help. He was standing there, screaming at you with his actions, she'd explained. He was begging you for help. It was bullshit. He was begging Captain Morgan for help, not her. That woman, with all those fancy initials after her name, with her knowing smile and condescending tone, didn't know shit about real people, real problems, and real relationships. She thinks of Helena, and of her stiff tone, her prickly demeanor that had poked at Kate through the phone line. Did Helena drink her problems away, or have any problems to begin with? Probably not. How many problems could someone like her have? She lounged around with all the talent and the money in the world. The damn woman is planning retirement at 32. Will spend the rest of her life sunning in the Caribbean, making early morning love to her husband, and growing fat with babies. She turns off the burner and taps the spoon against the edge of the pot. She tries to imagine Helena screaming in the middle of the room, asking someone for help. It will never happen. The woman would die first.